Hey, friends! Just so you know, we enjoy the swear word and we rely on good old fashioned humor to get through some seriously dark subject matter. At no time do we intend any disrespect toward the victims or families of the victims in the cases we cover. Also, be sure to listen to the end for a few palate cleansing bloopers to reset your mindset. And with that, we thank you for listening and we hope you enjoy.
Hey, friends. Welcome to Crime Will Tell. I'm Jamie, along with the much cooler Carrie. How are you, buddy?
My $20 worked well. I'm
Yeah,
doing
right?
good. Yeah, it pays to pay off people to say nice things.
Yeah, your mom was like, be good to her. She's an idiot. And I was like, okay.
Fucking here's a 50 and just she's had a rough week, okay?
Yeah.
Just be
I was
nice.
like, fine.
Yeah, no, I'm doing good.
Good. And I don't want to immediately bring things down, but it's, as we've said, we're a true crime podcast. So this is an incredibly sad case that shows just how far some people will go to punish another person
Uh-oh.
and how children can unfortunately be used as tools of revenge in toxic and abusive relationships. So with that, I have to give a big trigger warning for this episode. This case includes details about domestic violence and violence against children. So before we get into it, what you drinking tonight, Care Bear?
I'm drinking. That's a great question. What did I grab? A long drink. I totally forgot. As soon as I
Oh.
picked up, it blanked. It's a long drink. I'm drinking a long
Nice.
drink.
Okay.
Yeah. What are you drinking?
I am drinking a maple spice amber lager from our favorite brewery, Lion's
The lion's
Tail,
tail.
in Neenah,
Yeah.
Wisconsin.
Yeah. Well, cheers, my friend.
Cheers to you. Clink.
Clink. Did you catch that? I spilled.
Also, real fast, I want to give a big shout out to some of our new listeners, Savannah and Megan.
Okay.
Thank you for listening and supporting Crime Will Tell. You guys are the best. I am going to just jump right in and tell you about a giant crap pile named John Battaglia. There's no point in me trying to hide how I feel about this guy because the disdain in my voice when talking about him will likely be very clear. So I'll just make it real obvious from the beginning. He's a fucking asshole.
Mm.
So, John Battaglia Jr. was born in Alabama in 1955, and he was a military kid, just like you, Carrie.
Okay.
That's the only
I don't know that I
comparison
want it.
to you
I
two.
don't want anything in common.
It ends there. That's it.
Oh. Oh, okay. Cool.
His dad was in the army, so as a kid, they moved around a lot. He lived in places all over the United States and in Germany. He was the oldest of, I believe, 5 siblings, and when he was a young boy, I couldn't figure out the exact age, but their mother committed suicide after a
Oh.
long battle with mental health.
Oh
I believe she
my.
was bipolar. Obviously, the absence of their mother had a huge impact on him and his siblings, especially since their father wasn't really known to be a source of love and comfort for his children. And so when she was gone, there was like a definite void in their home on for just a lot of levels. So John went to college but was still living at home while he was attending school, and during this time he began using and dealing drugs. I think specifically cocaine, but was
Oh.
maybe dabbling in other things. And he was showing signs of increasing just anger and aggression. Knowing that he was headed down a path to nowhere good, he decided that he would join the US Marines, and he ended up doing a 4-year tour in the military and then decided that he wanted to go back to school to become a CPA, or a certified public accountant. And in 1982, that's exactly what he did. He went back to school and became an accountant.
So to get a CPA, to sit for the CPA exam, you can't be a dummy. There's like 4 parts to it, and it's really a hard exam
Yeah,
from what I
he was
understand.
a smart guy.
Okay. He obviously had motivation and energy to accomplish it too.
At a party in 1984, John met Michelle Ward. Okay, so like in some things her name is Michelle Ward and some it's Getty, and she was married before meeting John. So I believe that one of those was probably her maiden name and one was her first married name, but
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
sure which one she was at the time. So regardless, she was a highly educated lawyer and the mother of a 7-year-old son from that previous marriage. John was a good looking, charming, fun guy. Everybody seemed to love him. And he wasn't phased by Michelle having a child. So he really seemed like the perfect match for her. They ended up getting married in 1985 and went on to have a daughter together who they named Christy. But it didn't take long for the seemingly perfect John to start showing his true colors, and he became increasingly violent towards
Hmm.
Michelle. They separated after he hit Michelle while she was holding their daughter, which caused her to drop the baby. She
Oh,
was okay, but it was just kind of one of those like, you're going to hit me while I'm holding our kid. Like, that's where I'm going to draw the
yeah. Like,
line.
what else are you capable of doing then?
Yeah. And so she got a restraining order against him, which he ignored and began harassing her. He followed her, would call her constantly, watched her through the windows at her house, and even called her boss and coworkers to make false allegations that she was sleeping with one of the partners at the law firm where she worked. And I believe even said like she's pregnant with his baby.
Wow.
He at one point tried to run her car off the road while pointing a finger gun at her, which is threatening as fuck. And following that incident, he was finally arrested. Like, I mean, she kept just making complaints and finally he got arrested.
It's
And of
crazy.
course, he apologized and seemed to change his tune a bit. And they were trying to be amicable through their divorce proceedings. And, but that little bit of change in him didn't last long. After he pushed her down some steps in front of her house, she filed even more charges against him. And later that day, he walked up to her while she was at her son's school, like she was standing outside, I think, picking him up. He walked up and said, "If I'm going back to jail, I'm going to make it worth my while." And there, in front of the elementary school, he beat her until she lost consciousness and ended up being hospitalized. He
Oh my
dislocated her jaw
gosh.
and broke her nose. And when he threatened to give the same beating to her son, she ended up moving with them to Louisiana to get the hell away from him. And thank goodness she did. She was like, I gotta put some space between me and this motherfucker.
Oh my God.
In 1987, he pled guilty to misdemeanor assault charges and was sentenced to 2 years of probation, which, after all the charges and violations that he committed, is just a giant pile of horse shit. Like, he should absolutely have been in prison.
Yeah, because also this assault and battery was highly premeditated,
Yeah.
right? He walked up to her in front of her son's elementary school and said, "If I'm going to go to jail, I'm going to make it worth my while," and then beat the living love out of her. And he got okay.
Michelle thankfully divorced his mean ass, but unfortunately, Mr. Charming would move on to meet someone else. John met and began dating a woman named Mary Jean Pearle. And the
It's
couple married
cute.
in April of 1991. I know it just sounds like next on stage of the Opry, Mary Jean Pearle. And they seemed to have it all. They lived in a fancy tits house in a fancy tits neighborhood in Dallas, Texas. John was a successful accountant, and Mary Jean was an antiques dealer. And she had come from a very well to do, kind of wealthy family. So they really just kind of seemed to have it all. Their first daughter, Mary Faith, who went by Faith, was born in 1992, followed by their second daughter, Liberty May, in
Aw.
1995. From the outside looking in, they seemed to have, just the perfect life together. But throughout their entire relationship, John was verbally abusive to Mary Jean, and over time, he became physically abusive as well. By all accounts, John was a loving and doting father and never laid a hand on his children. He was just an abusive bitch to his wives.
Ugh.
Mary Jean and John's 9-year marriage began to fall apart due to his unpredictable temper and escalating abuse. And the couple separated in 1999. And because of the separation, he was no longer allowed to live in their home. So he got an apartment, and then Mary Jean stayed with the girls in their family home.
Okay.
On December 25th of 1999, so Christmas morning, John and his oldest daughter, Christy, arrived at Mary Jean's house to pick up his younger two daughters. He was allowed unsupervised visits with the girls, but was not supposed to be inside Mary Jean's home. But that holiday morning, she let him come inside.
Mm.
John was planning on taking his daughters to a Christmas church service, but instead ended up arguing with Mary Jean and got so pissed that he beat the crap out of her. Like, had her on the ground, punching her in the head and kicking her. And this beating happened right in front of his three daughters,
Oh my
who
God.
were all crying and begging for him to stop. So, 'tis the fucking season, you bastard. He got charged with misdemeanor assault and again was only sentenced to 2 years of probation. Again, with the feather light fucking sentences. And because of this, Mary Jean filed for divorce from John. The following summer, this would be August of 2000, John and Mary Jean's divorce was finalized. Because of the previous assault charge, an order of protection had been issued, which prevented John from threatening, stalking, or harassing Mary Jean or their two daughters. And it also prohibited him from possessing any firearms. Now, in interviews and articles regarding this case, there was mention of the girl's voicemail a lot. And I was like, what the fuck? So I'm not 100% sure of the details, but from what I can gather, there was a phone line designated for John to be able to contact his daughters or leave messages for them without him having to contact Mary Jean directly.
Okay.
And this answering machine, I believe, was in their daughter's bedroom so that they could have access to these messages. But Mary Jean would check them regularly. So, as abusive as he was to her, Mary Jean had never wanted John to go to jail, and she didn't want to keep her daughters from being around their father. So he still had regular dinners with the girls. But after he left some threatening voice messages for Mary Jean on that line for the girls, she reported the harassment to police and to John's probation officer, and then a warrant was issued for his arrest for breaking that order of protection. He had also tested positive for marijuana, which was obviously another
Oh,
violation of that probation. Yeah.
God forbid,
What?
let's do misdemeanors and probation for fucking spousal domestic abuse, but God for fucking bid there's a little bit of
A little weed that might calm him the fuck down.
that doesn't make any sense.
On May 2nd of 2020, nope. On May 2nd, 2001, 45-year-old John had a scheduled dinner with his daughters, Liberty, who was 6, and Faith, who was 9 years old. So Mary Jean met John at their usual drop-off location, which was in just a shopping center parking lot, just kind of that neutral place where they would make exchanges.
Mhm.
What she didn't know was that earlier that day, John had learned about the warrant that had been issued for his arrest, which really pissed him off. I mean, obviously, that's not great news for anyone to get, but John was an asshole with a bad temper. So instead of doing the right thing and surrendering himself to police, John had more sinister things in mind. He had promised the girls that he was going to take them to the mall to eat dinner, which is just precious. I just figure them getting excited about, like,
I
we're going to the
know,
mall,
and super
food
manipulative.
court. Yeah. But instead, he took them to his apartment in Dallas. and he called his former mother in law. So this would be Mary Jean's mother, and was like, hey, can you have Mary Jean give me a call? Because I don't think he can contact her directly. So he's
Mm.
having like these avenues where he's working around that. And so Mary Jean got the message from her mom. She returned the call. And when they answered, John put the phone on speakerphone and he made his daughter Faith ask, Mommy, why do you want Daddy to go to jail?
Oh my God.
Mary Jean then heard Faith scream and say, No, Daddy, please don't do it. Mary Jean yelled for her daughters to run, but it was too late.
Oh my
She then heard
God.
several gunshots, and her daughter's screams turned to silence. John then told Mary Jean, Merry fucking Christmas before ending the call.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And this was a very like weird thing for him to say since this was May, but it's believed that it was likely a reference to the assault that had taken place on Christmas a few years earlier.
Holy moly.
Yeah. And obviously stunned Mary Jean made a frantic call to 911 requesting emergency assistance to the apartment, and she drove the 20 minutes to John's apartment trying to get to her girls. When police arrived, they broke into the apartment where they found the bodies of the two young girls who had both been shot multiple times, including shots to the back of their heads. Faith's body was found in the kitchen near the phone where she had been talking with her mom, and she'd been shot 3 times. Liberty was found near the front door, likely running away from her father after seeing him shoot her
God.
sister. She had 4 gunshot wounds, which I mean, this must have been absolutely devastating for the officers to discover. And then they had to go give that heartbreaking news to Mary Jean, who was screaming for help while pacing outside as the police searched the apartment.
Oh my God.
After viciously killing his children, John Battaglia called and left a message on his daughter's voicemail, which said, Good night, my little babies. I hope you're resting in a different place. I love you. I wish that you had nothing to do with your mother. She was evil, vicious, stupid. You will be free of her. I love you very dearly. You are very brave girls, very brave. Liberty, you are oh so brave. I love you so much. Bye. What a sick
That makes me
motherfucker.
nauseous.
Yeah, that voicemail Mary Jean had discovered the day after her daughters were killed. He
Mm.
then went to a bar, like you do, with his girlfriend. There were no details about her. I don't know if it was just a friend or if he was actually dating someone, but it was just kept referring to her as a girlfriend. And then he went to a tattoo shop to get some new ink. This asswipe got a tattoo of 2 red roses on his arm to honor Faith and Liberty, the young daughters that he had just fucking murdered. And this tattoo shop is where he was tracked down by police around 2 o'clock in the morning. And I wish that they would have handcuffed him and had the tattoo artist cover up those roses with a giant piece of shit, because that is exactly what he is. He resisted arrest outside of the tattoo shop and fought with officers. It took 4 of them to finally restrain him and get him handcuffed. The arresting officers found a loaded pistol in his vehicle, and several other guns were also located in his apartment. Great.
Ugh.
Those officers later recalled how indifferent and just nonchalant John seemed after being arrested, and that demeanor just pretty much remained throughout all of his hearings and the trial. There was no question who murdered Faith and Liberty Battaglia. What was in question was whether their father was mentally competent to receive the death penalty for the charges of capital murder. The 46-year-old, of course, pled not guilty to the charges against him. During his trial, which began in April of 2002, evidence was presented to the jury showing that he had multiple mental health issues, including narcissistic personality disorder and bipolar disorder. His attorney argued that John was too delusional to be given the death penalty.
If he's a narcissist, the fact that narcissists can't handle rejection,
Yeah.
they can't handle somebody walking away from them because they're perfect.
Yeah, I think he had a lot of mental health issues, but they were never
100%. He
diagnosed or
had to
treated.
have. Yeah, because little Johnny was failed.
Fortunately, the jury decided that he was competent, and following a 20-minute deliberation, again, probably just so they could pee, Battaglia was found guilty of the capital murders and was sentenced to death. Mary Jean spoke in court following the verdict and said directly to her ex husband, "You are one of the most heinous murderers of modern time. Hitler didn't kill his own children. Dahmer didn't kill his own children." Side note, I don't think either of them had children,
They
but
didn't.
whatever.
But that's
Yeah,
okay. That's okay.
so
She's
not
just she's
maybe the
making a point.
most.
She's making a point.
Yeah, yeah. The worst of the worst didn't do this, but also like whatever. And she said that she wished he would burn in hell forever. She also told him, "I would like to say the next time you see me is when they put the needle in your arm, but I'm not going to waste my time to be there."
Okay, I like that. That's cool,
Yeah.
cool, cool. I like that.
He avoided 2 different execution dates in 2016 after his lawyer requested that his mental competency be reviewed, which became a sort of battle of the experts, which is pretty common in these trials. During his competency hearing, the prosecution presented evidence that he was faking having mental illness to avoid being executed. A psychiatrist, Dr. Richard Coons, Dick Coons, um,
I can't even with this.
testified that John killed his daughters as an act of anger and retribution to punish Mary Jean.
Exactly. Plain
Absolutely.
and simple.
Yeah. John had told him that, quote, all he wanted to do was to get the girls out of trouble so they wouldn't be drug addicts, strippers, hate their parents, or be prostitutes.
Because that's
Christ
the
on a bike.
only
Yeah. I I I
Christ on a
can't
bike.
with this guy. He just
Apparently, those are the only professions young women can aspire to do.
right?
Apparently,
Exactly. Oh my god. And then, meanwhile, the defense called another doctor, J. Douglas Crowder, who testified that John had immature personality disorder, which I had never heard of.
hey, can anyone diagnose anyone with immature personality disorder? Because I know a ton
I
of people
mean,
that would be applicable
no
to.
offense, dudes, but I feel like most men might have that. Anyway.
Man child syndrome,
Yeah.
MCS. It's a real problem.
Right? It is plaguing our country and the
Hmm.
world, especially these days. So immature personality disorder must have been a contributing factor in him committing the murders, and that he would not have done it if he had been properly medicated at the time. But this doctor also stated that, quote, he made a decision to do it and he knew the wrongfulness of his actions. Like, yeah, he may have had a mental illness, but he knew full well what he was doing.
Yeah. What year was this again? 2001, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. So back then, there was this huge, still this a huge stigma on mental health and the confusion between not knowing what you were doing or that what you were doing was wrong and still being mentally ill, thinking that they were one and the same. And it's like,
Right.
no, they're not.
And they discovered that John had apparently spent a lot of time in the prison's library while he was incarcerated, researching mental health competency in death penalty cases. I mean, this was a super smart guy who
Mhm.
didn't give even the tiniest shit about anyone else. He only wanted to spare his own life after ending the lives of his daughters. And in a recorded prison call with his father, Battaglia described his attempts to avoid lethal injection as a damn chess game. Like he knew this was just a game to him to get out of it. And he really thought that he could just outsmart everyone and that he could, just kind of simply turn on the crazy and convince everyone that he wasn't in his right mind. In one of the many appeals, His lawyers wrote that John was convinced that his trial and conviction were a sham and that him being sentenced to death was just part of a conspiracy involving the KKK, child molesters, and homosexual lawyers. Now, that would make for quite a
What?
collaboration.
Uh,
The KKK and gay lawyers and child molesters. What? Did
where
they have a
he
meeting and decide to bring this one turd down? No, I
But
don't.
I'm sorry, but it's not even like there is a question about who shot Faith and Liberty.
Exactly.
Like, there's no question, but then how could it be a sham?
He's saying that, like, his trial and him being sentenced to death is all part of a, like, him getting the death penalty. Like, and he did a lot of interviews, and I didn't want to go too far into it because it was just insulting to read.
Yeah, I get
But
it because he's like posturing and you don't want to like feed into it.
yeah, because he was basically telling journalists that would interview him while he was in prison that, like, he doesn't recall the murders and that his daughters were his best little friends and that he had pictures of them in his cell. Like, there's no way he could have done it.
Oh, like he was in some kind of fucking blackout fugue state?
Yeah,
Give
yeah.
me a
And so he was like, I wouldn't do, they were my best little buddies. It's like, no, you shot your best little buddies in the fucking head to hurt their mom, is what happened. His lawyers claimed that because of those delusions, they prevented him from having a, like, a rational understanding of his punishment. And if you don't understand your punishment, that's like one thing that kind of should, like, invalidate the death penalty.
no.
Like, that's one of the things that, like, if you're like, not mentally competent to understand, this is what I did, this is why I'm being punishment, like, by being punished, and now I'm going to be punished with death, then they, like, that's one big argument against the death penalty. So they're really
Oh,
pushing for him, that he was like, oh, I'm a delusional because the KKK and gay lawyers don't want me to, like, what?
yeah, exactly.
And what a random,
Collection of things to bring together.
yeah, just like, let me just pluck out some random groups
The
that would
most
never get along.
controversial things, right? The
Yeah,
most controversial things to distract you from what's happening over here behind the curtain. Yeah.
exactly. And so I might have a little understanding for the whole, like, he had a mental break defense if he hadn't had years of violence against the women he
Right?
supposedly loved. He had a history of abuse and assaults and got white man slaps on the wrists. Had he been properly punished, his daughters might be thriving adults. They'd be in their 30s today. Like, he knew exactly what he was doing.
He had a history of forceful control over the women in his life.
Yes.
And he's the worst of the predators because he preyed on his own daughters who looked at him as the one person in this world that would keep them safe.
Yeah.
And he did it for one purpose only, and that was just to turn to his ex-wife and say, "Ha, what are you going to do now, bitch?" Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Like, it's so clear why he did it. I can't talk about it too much because I'll fucking bawl, but, like, those little girls, the excitement over getting to go to the mall and have dinner with
Right.
their dad, and then
Right.
see him pointing a gun at them and begging for him not to do it, and then one of them witnessing the other get shot first. I don't know how it happened, but I can't imagine my dad, who was like my hero and my protector,
Mhm.
just turning at me and fucking killing me. What those poor babies faced is, again, I will fucking bawl if I, like, think about it too much.
Mhm.
So there were numerous stays of execution and state and federal appeals, which isn't uncommon. Like, that pretty much
Mm-mm.
is
Mhm.
standard for a death penalty case.
Don't appeals, like if somebody is sentenced to death here in the US, don't isn't there an automatic appeal?
There's an automatic,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. That's
And then there's typically just years and years of,
Yeah.
like, other appeals and stuff. The final appeal made it all the way to the US Supreme Court, after John's lawyers asked the case to be reviewed because his perception of reality may be so distorted that he is incompetent to be executed. And the US Supreme Court justices were like, no, fuck this guy. And so almost 17 years after killing his two daughters, 62-year-old John Battaglia was executed by lethal injection on February 1st, 2018 in Huntsville, Texas. But while he was strapped to the gurney to be executed, he was smiling and joking around. His demeanor was actually described as jovial. There was no one sitting on the convict side of the witness room. Not one person was there to show support for him, which speaks volumes about how awful he was. While entering the execution room, he looked around and asked, "How many people are there?" "Oh, that's a lot." He chose not to give a final statement, but when he looked around and spotted Mary Jean, who had obviously changed her mind
Yeah.
about not wanting to be present to see him die, she was sitting on the victim's side of the viewing room for the execution. He smirked and said, "Well, hi, Mary Jean." And then he kind of turned to the prison staff and was like, "I'll see y'all later. Bye. Go ahead, please." Just kind of just smug and shitty. Once they began the injections, Mr. Jokes looked up smiling and asked, "Am I still alive?"
Oh
Then
my
grin
gosh.
yeah. Then grinning like a total asshole, he said, "Oh, here, I feel it." And he smiled as he closed his eyes. Like, for me, they couldn't get the needle in that motherfucker fast enough. And after he was injected and the meds took effect, Mary Jean walked down to the front of the room and stood right in front of that fucking glass. And she watched his breathing slow and eventually stop. Like, she just needed to know that he was gone forever. And then she said,
Wow.
"I've seen enough of him." And she returned to the back of the room with everybody else. And I assume, but I think she probably felt just such immense relief in that
Hmm.
moment, knowing that he could never hurt her, no more taunting, couldn't do anything else to hurt her or
Mm-mm.
anyone else.
She was finally free.
Yeah. And so 22 minutes after the injection was given, John Battaglia was pronounced dead at 9:40 p.m. Now, I couldn't find much information about his oldest daughter, Christy, that he had from his first marriage,
Hmm.
but she spoke publicly in support of her father's execution. So she was like,
Oh
"Yeah,
shit.
kill the
Okay.
motherfucker." So I don't know if they had any sort of relationship, prior to the murders, if she was still in his life or whatever, but by the end, it seems like she was like, "You killed my little sisters and, fucking take him, whatever."
Christy's mom, what would do we know anything about how she felt about all of this? Because her and her son and daughter got away. Like they got
Right.
away. So did she ever open up about how she any type of way she was feeling about all of this? I imagine that it was very traumatic.
I couldn't find much on her, but she did testify. So
She
I think like
did.
sentencing hearings and stuff, she talked about like all of the information that I had about the abuse that she had, like, from him in their marriage came from her testimony at like
No shit.
sentencing
Yeah.
hearings.
Isn't it amazing when you can find testimony transcript? Oh, I love it so
Yeah.
much.
The day that he killed the girls, he had actually contacted his first wife. He was like, "Mary Jane thinks that she can take the girls and put me back in jail," or something like that. I don't know why he was reaching out to her, but then it was like this animosity and this anger was like building in him. And she had witnessed part of that the day that he killed Faith and Liberty.
Dang.
So I don't know if they had any sort of relationship or, you know, I really don't know what that relationship was like, but it doesn't sound like she had any respect for him and
Yeah,
was
it
like
doesn't.
testifying, doing whatever she could to make his sentence as hefty as possible. So she was a
100%.
big part of that. In honor of her two daughters, Mary Jean created Faith and Liberty's Place Family Center, which serves as a safe place for supervised visits with children and custody exchanges when one of the parents has a history of violent behavior. The visits with parents are supervised by off duty police officers who volunteer. She vowed to help victims of domestic abuse and is helping and protecting a lot of families, which I think is so
That's
amazing.
awesome.
Yeah. And I've said it before, I'm saying it again, I'll probably say it down the road, but I love when positive things come from tragedy. Not to take away from the hurt and the pain that was caused, but when loved ones impacted by horrible crimes choose to make a positive impact on the world and they choose to help other people or change laws or provide resources for victims. The list goes on and on. Like we've heard so many cool stories of good things people are doing and positive changes that have happened. And I fucking love it. Like I love at the end of a case when I can be like, but because of these murders, a law was changed in Texas in 2001, which made it mandatory for judges to request and review any history of violence during divorce proceedings, even if that violence was not against the children, which is huge. Prior to the murders, John had never laid a hand on any of his daughters, but he was incredibly violent with his wives. It was potentially just a matter of time before that abuse overflowed and impacted his children too. This case is a perfect example of when I am on board with the death penalty. It's a
Mm.
controversial issue, and I struggle with it because so many wrongfully accused people have been killed or have sat on death row for crimes they didn't commit. But this case is different. John Battaglia was a violent man with a history of assaults against women. He killed his babies to hurt his ex wife, and there was no doubt who committed the crimes. And when someone shows no remorse for killing his children, but shows obvious satisfaction for emotionally devastating his ex wife over the death of those sweet girls, then that piece of shit deserves to die.
Mm.
I don't think someone like that can be reformed or add anything positive to society and doesn't deserve to continue living. To me, he proved this when he wanted to continue torturing Mary Jean, even as he was strapped to a gurney just minutes away from death. In his final moments, he continued to get satisfaction over hurting her. He was the lowest of the low, and I, for one, am glad that he can no longer hurt anyone else.
Preach.
Girl.
Fuck.
And that is the absolutely tragic case of the murders of Faith and Liberty Battaglia.
God damn it. I personally think that the term narcissist is thrown around a lot these days
Yeah,
and
for sure.
used probably in situations where the point isn't like technically by textbook definition, the person's probably not technically a narcissist, but there are tendencies, and that's the point, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
I have only known one truly narcissistic person in my life whereby every decision that's made by this person is made purely and solely from the standpoint of controlling and power.
Mm,
And it doesn't matter if she needs to use her kids. It doesn't matter if she needs to use the people in her life that thought that she was a friend. It doesn't matter if she needs to use her family. It doesn't matter who she needs to use. She'll use them to get what she
mm,
wants, including the kids. And so when we think about people with like straight up narcissists or people with narcissistic tendencies where it's about power and control, I think that's where it gets real frightening and scary because you don't know how far somebody's going to go. Like you just don't think that stuff like this could happen. There's no way Mary Jean
right.
ever thought, no matter how abusive John Battaglia was to her, that he would
Yeah.
ever hurt their children, their daughters, because he's never, to your point, he never laid a hand on them up to that point.
Yeah. And she, like I'd mentioned early on, like as awful as he was to her, she never wanted that to impact the relationship that her daughters had with their dad.
Yeah, but she was thinking logically. And logic goes out the window when you're dealing with a narcissist.
Yeah.
Narcissists, they collectively make decisions purely for the sake of power and control and what they want, and you cannot reason with them. And
Yeah.
it's really scary because they'll go to great lengths to maintain power and control, even if that means hurting people.
Oh, for sure.
And it's fucking scary.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking. Like those girls, like if one more, well, first of all, if he'd been punished properly, he hopefully would have been in prison. Maybe Mary Jean could have gotten the girls away. They could have had a life somewhere else farther away from him. It's just all
At
these
least they
little
would have had
things
a
kind of
chance.
built up to it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's just
My God.
very frustrating and fucking heartbreaking.
Faith and liberty.
Yeah, it's
Sweet,
just, it's
beautiful
crazy to
souls.
think that they would be like in their 30s doing who knows what now. But anyway, on that note, very sad fucking note. Goodbye, Carrie.
Goodbye, Jamie.
What is wrong with me? What was I doing?
She's stupid.
12 Shades of Stupid.
Rule number 1.
I'm sorry about your upbringing.
Your father gave us the fodder.
This household is ridiculous.
We make it and we eat it.
Thanks, dickwad.
Who's applauding?
The gang's all here.
They should be in my goddamn mouth.
No.